Oxnard is probably not exactly the hotbed of metaphysical territory. I don't know if I lived someplace bigger if it would make any difference. I think just living in Southern California makes it okay. It would be tough if I lived in South Carolina or someplace like that.
There you go. Ready to go for a walk, Jezebel?
I remember some of my first psychic experiences now looking back, but at the time, I kind of saw everything as normal. I didn't really see anything that I was doing as out of the ordinary. I grew up in Ventura, California, and had a fairly normal childhood. Leave it to Beaver kind of thing. My parents were traditional. I was taught not to question things because that was showing a lack of faith. So if I had questions about things they were telling me in church, I got a lot of trouble for asking questions if it didn't make sense to me. My parents' attitude toward the paranormal was, even if you read your horoscope in the newspaper for fun, that was dangerous and that was considered a sin, and don't ever do it seriously or you're going to go to hell. I knew stuff about people. I kind of understood their motives and what was going on behind their words. They don't argue that I have some ability and I can know things that there's no explanation for. But for a long time they were worried that it was coming from maybe an evil source. So I kind of kept my opinion to myself. I started making a split from church when I was old enough to refuse to go. And it was tough on my parents. You know, they kind of put a little bit of barriers up between us. I pretty much dated and worked and held a single life till when I met Steve. We got married in '88. My abilities, I think, really started showing up when the kids were born. I think I started feeling a lot of connection with the kids, almost telepathically. I'd hear the phone ring, and I'd walk over there to pick it up, and then it would really ring. And I'd go, whoa. That's when the dreams started. I started having the dreams that I realized were coming true when I dreamed about the plane going down in New York. Why did I have this foreknowledge? I mean, that's a horrible thing to know, that this is going to happen and there's nothing you can do. One night I had a dream about a little girl drowning. The next day I saw in the headlines about this little girl by this name who had drowned. As these things started happening, you know, you can't dismiss it anymore. You're going, something is going on here. So I went and talked to a friend of mine who had been studying metaphysics for 20 years. She felt that by hypnotizing me, we could get information and it wouldn't be so traumatic for me. And that coincided with the very first case I worked on. One night I had this dream that I was in the back seat of this blue-green Altima. We were driving down this curvy road. I knew the people in front, and the person in front was my husband, and this woman in front of me was his girlfriend. However, it wasn't really my husband. I mean, it wasn't Steve. So I knew that in the dream I was somebody else. I was experiencing what somebody else experienced. And I was arguing with this woman. And at some point I realized that I was in great danger, that their intentions were bad. And I woke up. 3 days later, I'm looking in the newspaper and I see that a woman is missing. It was somebody actually I went to high school with. And that her husband and girlfriend are the main suspects. They had rented a car, a blue-green Altima, and they turned the car back in 2 days later, blood-soaked. At that point, I knew, oh my God, that's her. It's got to be her. I mean, it's just, I know that I was seeing through her eyes, and I know who did this. I went to Beverly, She hypnotized me, and so I asked for more details about the crime, and I was able to see her location. Though I didn't know what road it was, I knew she was right next to a road, and I knew she was in this embankment where the little trickling stream, and I could see her as plain as day. I knew that she was killed by a blunt forced to the back of her head. And every weekend they were holding a search party, and I was just racked with guilt, and it felt horrible because I knew that I could help. So I went down there, and I said, I think I know who she is. They all kind of gathered around, and they said, well, what do you know? So I told them what I had seen, and they decided to take me to the house where she lived, and to maybe get me some of her jewelry, something to hold. I didn't expect to come face to face with the husband. He came out, and he took one look at me and said, oh, you must be the psychic that they've got working. Since I'm very good at seeing through people, I could see through him.